So it will fire. Once it fires, the master recognizes that that one fired, then it will start closing this Belimo valve. That way you're not running water through an off boiler, you're wasting energy. It's all automated, there's nothing to switch, turn.
And is that programmed into the master boiler?
It's in the PID.
Okay, and then is there any way that we could accidentally deprogram it out of there, or it's, how's it?
Only way you can do it is if you go in here and start pushing buttons, and that's why I recommend don't ever go into the settings.
Don't tell me not to push buttons.
Okay, push them as much as you want. Just don't call me. But these arrows here, you can push them all day long. You're not going to hurt anything. They're just viewing screens, so to speak, different temperatures, outside air. There's a GPM, which is on the front screen. This is just more to look at.
I just want to make sure that I don't accidentally change the program on that Belimo valve to where it's...
The only way you can do that is if you go in and where it says master pump valve remains on. If you turn that to off, it will close like the rest of them when there's no boilers running, and you might deadhead the pump if there's no bypass in the system. I don't know, I don't see the piping schematics, and it's not part of my protocol to worry about that because I can take care of that here. So that's why I tell people never go into the settings. There's no reason to. It's just it's all set up. I've been doing this for 15 years with this equipment, and there's no reason. I mean, I can, like if you want to change the set point, if it's in local, I'll show you on this one. It's easier. Say if that one's down, like I said, you got to turn it off, or it's never going to run until you repair it. And you're like, oh, I don't want 130, I want 150. All you do is touch right here, brings up another screen, and then you just change it to whatever you want, hit OK, and you'll see it change. That easy. So you don't have, it's also in the settings too, but this kind of keeps you out of the settings. So they put everything right here in front of you. It's all on the home screen. So I'll change that back.
And that'll hold that forever until you manually change it if you're running local mode?
Exactly. It'll stay at this 130 forever, or 140 if you turn it to 140 forever. You have to physically make that change.
All right.
The master, you will see its set point change based on the BMS sending in a signal. So that one will change, but this one and that one will always show this when they're off. See how this says 130 and that's showing 135?
Yep. And it only looks at that when it's in local mode.
Correct. Same with the master. If I flip the master, whatever the local mode for the master is set, that's what it's going to look at. It's going to ignore what the BMS, because the BMS has failed or...
Push that set point over to these guys.
Correct.
They're both in local.
If the local set point is 160 on that, it's going to try and tell these to run at 160. The only time these will try and run at that set point is if you flip it to local. When these are all on remote, the master dictates what these two are doing. And each boiler's boiler valve is controlled by each boiler. It's not controlled by the master. It's all individual boiler in that scenario. For the safeties, that's really all there is. The other one you might see is a local flow fault. Because we have Belimos, it's relying on flow from the pumps on the floor over there. So if those aren't down, and the BMS should have all that in line. They should be, sequence should be turn on a pump, let the pump run for a few minutes, and then start operating a boiler. I had one to where it was like backwards. They tried, well, EPS. They kept trying to start the boiler before they fired the pumps, kept going to flow fault. And I said, guys, reverse it. Start the pump, then start the boiler, especially with Belimo valves. If the boilers had their own individual boiler pump, I could care less, because that boiler pump creates its own flow through the boiler loop. Those have to create the loop or the flow for the whole system. So if you see a local flow fault, you might want to walk over there and make sure at least one of those three pumps are on. If they're not, turn them on. Why would they be off? I don't know. Be a good question for Long, I think it is. Control contractor. So that's it. And the only way you can reset that local flow fault is to cycle power. And you don't have to turn it off, wait 5 minutes, just off, on. Off, on. That should clear the fault. If it keeps popping up, why are we losing flow again? The Belimo could have failed, or is not opening. They have little flag indicators on them, and I can tell it's like this, so the flow is that way, so it's closed right now. And that one is pointing up, so it's in line with the flow, the pipe. So you can stand back here and go closed, closed, open, perfect. Maintenance on these, no different than Y East. Igniters, check those once a year. They made the airbox easier to get into compared to your 10, 15-year-old boilers you got in some of the other schools. So pop these 4 clips, filter comes straight out. I call it the tap test. I tap it on the ground gently. It's got a metal frame around it. If you start wailing on it, that frame comes off, you are not putting it back together. You're not. So just gentle tap, and if you see a cloud come off, it's time to clean or replace the filter. Can you wash these? Yes, but I recommend taking an air compressor, blowing them out first before you put water to them. If they're caked in dust and you put water to them, the media is fairly fine. It may turn into a concrete stepping stone, and that filter is no longer filtering. So if you look on the side of each one of these boilers, it's got a fancy parts list here. Air filter is the second one on here. You've got can 26, second down, there's your part number. So you can call this number right here, stand right here, and order it. You don't have to try and hunt down a manual, go to your computer and find the manual. It's right here in front of you. That way, if they ask you for model and serial number, you can step over here. Oh, that's a can 26. Oh, the serial number is on each tag on the right-hand side right there. So everything's right here for you. We've tried to make it easy. That way you're not running in circles. Hang on, let me go out to my car, So there's your parts list. You usually get parts 1 to 2 days, unless with the supply chain issues we're having, I don't know what's behind, what's not, so. But filters and igniters are really the only, you shouldn't have to stock any. I've had guys go, should I stock a gas valve? If you want to stock a $1,500 part on your shelf for who knows how long, go for it. It's wasted money. It's a giant paperweight sitting there for no reason. So, like I said, a lot of the stuff you can get 1 to 2 days. So if something does completely go kaputs in 4 or 5 years, then you can buy it then. The problem with that is a lot of stuff guys are trying to pass as a warranty. All this stuff has called a date code on it. You guys know what that is? So they stamp a date on there. It's usually 4-digit. They put it'll be like 20 of 22. That means it was made the 20th week of 22. So that tells the manufacturer that I've had guys know about the date code and try to wipe it off and tell me that, oh, this thing's instead of warranty. I'm like, I always know when I start these boilers around that time frame. So if I know it's 5 years old and you told me it's about 8 months old, I'm gonna call you out. So trying to cheat that date code thing, a lot of manufacturers are pretty smart about that, and it's not the way to do things anyway. So maintenance, that's really it, other than your fancy condensate neutralizer in the back of the boilers back here. You all know about these, right? Yep, replace pH power pellets every 6 to 12 months based on the pH that is leaving the other end. Follow this where it goes to drain, and then get this litmus paper, and if the pH is below 5, replace them, because it's no longer filtering the acidic moisture that's coming out of the boiler. And then it's going to eat your drain, and then you got to call an excavation company in to redo your drain, and that becomes very, very, very expensive. So please stay on top of the pH coming out of these. Again, it's very acidic. If you control it through these pellets, you'll be fine. So 3 biggest maintenance things are, we don't need that. The filter, electrodes, and this, not in any order. Well, filter's always number 1. Keep that thing clean. I'd probably check it like Monday, because with all this construction dust, building the fields, all this dirt, even though it's going out through the roof 30 feet in the air, doesn't mean anything. The number 1 cause of pollution in Los Angeles is tire dust. They found it on top of 30-story buildings. So those particles can get everywhere. And if it starts plugging up your filter, these are going to run harder, less efficient. You're wearing it down, wearing its life expectancy down faster than need be. Air filter is number 1. Check it the most often. And it's very simple to do now. You don't have to get 14 screws out of a cover. 4 clips, you can check it in 2 minutes and be on your way. But again, if you are going to want to clean them, blow them out with an air compressor. Really. And and then wash them down. A lot of guys will buy a spare, put the wash down one in a cabinet against the wall, put the new one in 3-4 months later, 6 months, whatever you decide is best. Just keep rotating them like that. I've seen guys go 3 years without cleaning the filter. The filter is this color. I've seen guys go like 3 years and it was this color. It's not good. It's not good for the boiler or anything else on this boiler. The burner, nothing. Filters only filter so much. Those particles pass through. The slits on these burners are about the size of that number 1. There's thousands of them. So if you get a bunch of dust or mosquitoes, yes, mosquitoes. I had an air filter that was almost fully plugged with mosquitoes one time. So if those little slits, you get a patch like this where all the slits can create a hot spot and take out your burner. These filters, I don't know, $60, $70, versus a $4,000 or $5,000 burner. You guys decide what you want to buy. I'd rather buy, how many filters can you buy for $5,000? A lot. And since you've got these all over the district, except for your older ones, there you go. If you don't have them, why you used to go, I got a couple of Mountain View, run over here, grab these, and then go, I better order some more. That's simple. Again, pulling the air from outside, traffic, construction, these are on, they turn into a vacuum cleaner. Whatever's passing the air in, it gets sucked into here. So the filter, filter, filter. Please stay on top of that. So if you call me 11 months, or say a month before the warranty's out and it's having problems, I can look at the flame and I can easily tell what's going on. I pull this filter and it's dirty, we got issues. So stay on top of the filter, please. Unless you have any other questions. Yes?
So, the vent drain on a lot of our sites, so I'm assuming it's supposed to be, should there be a trap on that? Most of ours are installed with a trap, so I don't know if that's the recommendation.
There should be, but if it's creating a good, I don't know how those are designed inside. So if this, see how that angles? I don't know if there's a chute and there's just like a little drain, but if it's creating a good enough draft, all the exhaust gases should go up. And I mean, this goes, it's a pretty good vertical. If it's a long horizontal, I might have a problem with it. Plus, when it goes through here, I don't really see, any combustion gases coming out there.
So would that be a recommendation from you guys as the board reps or the vent pipe company?
That's a good question. I'm not sure. I've never been asked that question.
Okay,
So
yes, I'm not sure.
you might want to ask Apollo. Say, hey, I noticed this during training. What do you guys think? Should we have a trap there? And they may go, it's not necessary. I don't know if it's recommended. Well, I don't think the boiler manufacturer would recommend it because they don't know what kind of vent you're putting on it. Right? They don't want to tell you to use this vent, and it looks like they're steering you towards these guys, and collusion or whatever you want to call it. Yeah. No other questions. I'm really done with the presentation. And we can move on to the pumps, which will be very simple. We good? Okay, we'll move on to the pumps. You can see here we have Taco base-mounted pumps. They're called the FI series. Don't ask me what that means. We have 3 hot water pumps and 3 chilled pumps for the chiller system. This is the suction side of the pump. Water comes in and gets sent out to the building to heat the school. That's really annoying. It's so hard. These have already been aligned. I can tell by these fancy stainless shims, so they've already been aligned. Rotation's been checked. And I know they've been running for months and months and months, so. Maintenance on these, you can see there's Zerk fittings. There were none over at Mountain View, if you remember. They have them on these. So you can get these maintenance-free like Mountain View or maintenance needed. The I-O&M provided by Apollo should tell you in the manual for that bearing assembly what type of grease to use, how often to grease it, how many squirts of grease. Most motors and bearings these days use it's an Exxon product, Polyrex EM. It's that blue. Don't just go, I've got some in my house, I use my car, you know. Don't do that. You mix grease, it can cause problems and take your pump out. So try and stay consistent. That's why I say they may have changed the type of grease they use. It's too hard to keep up on all that stuff. So IOM with the ball door motor, take a picture of the nameplate, go to the website, put in that top part number, and they'll tell you right there what type of grease, how many squirts, how often you do it. It's usually 2,000 hours once a year, like most things. I had a motor over at City of Gresham. They said it wasn't working, and it wasn't working because some guy sat there and went like this all day. There was grease everywhere.
I would rather under-grease a motor than over-grease a motor.
Yes. I mean, there was grease. I've never seen that much grease inside of a motor. It was unbelievable. So don't just think 20 pumps is going to do it. No, you're going to cause problems. So other than that, there's just no maintenance on these. You see this cover here. The only reason that's there is for during startup when they're doing flushing. It's had a startup screen in it, which I don't see any around here, so they've been taken away. But it's just a finer screen to catch any welding slag, cigarette butts, whatever got into the pipe, and that's usually taken out within a week of startup. And that's the only reason that cover is on there. You should never have to get in there ever. If you ever have to work on one of these pumps, obviously you're going to find isolation valves, which is there and there. So say you come in one day and this pan is full of water or water's pouring out of here. Why they didn't run to drain, they never do. I don't know. It even comes with a plug so you can plug it. That's their discretion, I guess. But you come in and this is filled with water, water's pouring out of here, that means your mechanical seal has blown out. Remember when I said deadheading? You deadhead a pump and it's running, it doesn't know that it doesn't have a return path. So it's just going to keep running and keep running. You're going to heat up the seal's going to crack. Once they crack, water starts going everywhere. Okay? So if you come in, there's water all over the floor, it's like, uh-oh, isolate it immediately. Well, turn it off first. Duh. Isolate it and then go, yeah, we need to replace that. It's a process to do if you've never done it before. Have you replaced seal kits? Isolate, lock out, tag out, because you're going to be moving parts. You don't know if BMS is going to tell it to turn on. Motors, you get your shirt caught in there, motors don't know when to stop until you're wound up in it, and that's going to be a really bad day. So lock out, tag out first, isolate. We give you a drain down valve here. Even after you start pulling it apart, you're still going to get water out of here because you're never going to get it totally empty until you open it up. Take the coupler guard off, the coupler insert. Sometimes the shafts are super close, so you're not going to get the bearing assembly out because you need about that much room. So if the shafts are this close, you're going to have to loosen the motor. What I do is I pull the shims out and set them right here. That way you know where they came from. Don't mix them all together because then you got to realign the whole pump. If you just pull these out and set them here on each side, you know they go in there when you're going to put them back together. Then you'll have to pull the bolts, spin the motor so you can get the bearing assembly out to replace that mechanical seal. Put it back together, open up the isolation valves, turn it on, and hope and pray you did it right and there's no more water coming out of there. So.
Do those volutes, so some of the volutes I've seen in the past have holes in them that are threaded so you can take out some of the existing bolts, put them in there to pop that loose. Do these have to have that?
They do. They're called jacking screws. Because these create such a suction, and sometimes when that gasket's been in there for a while, you can beat on it, you get the biggest primer you want, you're never going to get that separated. So again, pull the coupler guard, pull the coupler, pull the motor, spin it, that way you can get all this out. So you want to undo all of these bolts all around here, and then this hole here and the one opposite. Typically the bolts are the same size, sometimes they're not, so you just have to figure that out. I try to get other bolts because if you screw up the threads on this, then you're going to be short a bolt. So get a couple spare bolts. So what you do is put it in each hole, finger tight, and you give it like 2 turns, 2 turns, 2 turns, 2. Don't just jack 10 turns on this one and you've done nothing there. You're going to start bending things, okay? Try and do it evenly so it comes out. It's called a jacking screw for a reason. It's jacking that cover plate off of the volute body. Like I said, you can get whatever primer you want. I guarantee you're not going to do it. Just have fun if you want to try it. So once you get those out like this much, then you can put a, in one of those just small little pry bars in there and slowly pry it, it'll just pop out, and there it is. And then there's inside of this space here, it's called a volute gasket. That comes with the seal kit. It comes with a seal, mechanical seal, and a bunch of volute gaskets. You got to figure out which is the correct one to put on there. Make sure all the surfaces are smooth as this glass here. If you run your finger and you feel a little bump in it, it's probably gasket material. Get it off of there. Because if you try and put it back together, even with that little piece of it, it's going to leak. Trust me. It's got to be super smooth. With a gasket, because they come in a box all bound up, it irritates me. They don't listen to me, so it's not going to change. What I usually do first is find the gasket I need, and I'll find like a table and a box, put it on the gasket, and then I'll help flatten it out while you're doing all this other work. Okay, makes sense? That way it stays in place. The other thing I do is get some grease and grease around that. That holds the gasket in place. That way as you're putting it together, if you're not paying attention, again, if you pinch that gasket, you're toast. You got to find another one. Means you probably have to buy another kit, because there's like 12 different sizes or 14, whatever it is. Only comes with one of each. So if you pinch that gasket, you're done until you get another gasket. So be very careful. The grease helps hold it in place. I put grease on this space where the gasket goes, and once you put the gasket on, I put grease on that, and that will help it break that seal the next time. When they put these in from the factory, they'll use grease and four little points, but they don't do it all the way around like I do. You can reuse the gasket most of the time. It's your judgment. So, and like a lot of, I don't see any in here. Like direct coupled pumps, it's basically the motor sits up here, the body's here, water goes that way. Those, a lot of times when they put them in up against the wall of piping, the pecker heads on the back say, I don't want to spin it. Well, they go to spin it, that gasket's dry, they're shredding that gasket. You really have to turn the motor on, all you have to do is put water to it, and you're done. Water's going everywhere. So that's why I put the grease on. You can spin it like a steering wheel. Nice and smooth. Yeah. Yeah, just not a huge ton of it, so. Yeah.
Between my fingers and I just squeegee it off.
Yeah, it doesn't take much. Because you don't want that stuff getting in the water stream, that could get on the seal face, and then you just destroyed your good work. So just make sure everything's super clean, don't get grease and goop everywhere. When you go to put the seal key in, please wash your hands before. Never touch the seal face. Never. With your fingers. Don't use the red linen rags. Just don't touch them. It comes with a little cardboard disc. That's what I use to push it into the suction eye part. And you can usually tell, just make sure it's seated properly. If it's in there, you can tell it's cockeyed. Just think, oh, that's going to be good enough because this is going to push that down. It's got to be flush. Okay? Any other questions? Those pumps are the same. All 6 of these pumps they're no different. Those are just a little bit bigger. So I am done with these. If you have any questions, feel free. We're good? Well, thanks for coming in, gentlemen.